Let's put some slides up. All right, who wants to see more tool demos? Yeah, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do tool demos right now. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Rembrandt and what we're up to. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the output of what our technology delivers to marketers. Today's Marketer Day, and I really wanted this talk to be focused on the value marketers get from a technology and a platform like this and what we're doing in the market. So without further ado, we were at an Adweek conference earlier this year or last year, and this is in New York City in the middle of Madison Avenue with people who spend their entire days marketing and buying media. And we said, raise your hand if you go home at night and pay not to watch ads because you have Hulu or Disney Plus or pay for YouTube or Netflix. And half the audience raised their hands. And then we said, okay, keep your hands up. Now raise your hand if you can't wait to hammer that skip button on YouTube when you are served an ad. And the entire audience raised their hands. And the reality is consumers hate watching video ads. They're interruptive, they ignore them, they pay to skip them and avoid them. And so we think this is a fundamental problem for marketers and consumers. And if there's one thing you don't want to do, you don't want to bet against the consumer, particularly if you're a marketer. And so we think that brand advertisers, direct response advertisers, their strategy is not keeping up with this behavioral shift. And so the strategic question for a marketer is, how do you reach your consumers who skip those ads? And those tend to be the most premium consumers, right? They have the wherewithal to be able to pay to skip those ads. Two is, are you staying top of mind, right? There's limited attention that a consumer can pay, and are they paying attention to your brand? And are you able to scale as you reach these really targeted micro communities? And our thesis when we built Rembrandt was that interruptive ad models were not going to deliver on any of these things and weren't really going to sustain the future of growth for video content as more and more content creators created video. And so we essentially have built a new ad format for video that allows marketers to engage consumers without interrupting them. We use photorealistic technology that fuses a brand into video content and content that consumers love. And we think that this is ultimately a much more sustainable way for marketers to do marketing. A couple things, and I'm going to show some videos. I promise I will not show demos of tools. So we're seamlessly integrated. We're on screen for 10 or 20x more time than an ad would be. You can reach the unreachable, so people who pay to skip ads are watching this content, and I'll show you why. We're non-interruptive, and we scale like media, which is probably the most important part. So when we work with big brands, they send us an IO from the media teams that are executing those IOs, and we have the expectation from them that we can scale the way a display campaign or a search campaign would. We reach targeted audiences. They're super premium, and it's really, really easy to use. And let me show you a bunch of examples of what this looks like out in the wild. And I'm just going to play a variety of them, and you can judge for yourself. So this is
Hello, lovers. Welcome back to another video. I'm Katie. If you're new here, you should subscribe because I just made myself some breakfast. We're going to enjoy it together as I talk to you. So blessed to be able to have gone there. Go watch those videos. We're back, and I'm getting back into my routine. They're so good. I missed a good
off, so you can still get that benefit of hip opening without the pressure from yogi squat or baddha konasana. However, if you are practicing those poses, you could also do those poses right now instead.
It really is like the best thing for your body. I know like the sun like causes like skin cancer or whatnot, but like it really is good. Like as soon as you walk outside, Todd does this every morning. I've started doing it too. He immediately goes outside when he wakes up and just stands under the sun like that.
So what are we looking at here? We're looking at organic content posted by influencers on their own channels, reaching their own audiences and their own consumers. except before they post that video, they upload it to Rembrandt. We match that content to a campaign that's in our system, and our technology inserts products and brands and posters and 3D models in a photorealistic way into that content that the creators upload to their YouTube channel and reach their audience, and the brand pays them for that on a CPM the way they would if they were buying media. I'll show you a couple more examples.
I've always wanted to go to. Like, I want to go to a cat convention. I want to go to a cat show. You know where like they pick up the cats and they go, it's a Eukanuba thing. It's an exhibition.
Keep in mind, this is a bill that is being passed all across California. It's not just Palm Springs. So if you're ever going to book an Airbnb
And so what's cool about this is these are sort of different brands that you see scattered in various different videos, but I'll show you what this looks like with some of our customers. And our customers are looking for tonnage. They're looking for, instead of going to an influencer and paying them $1 gazillion and saying, I hope that this video content reaches my audience, or I hope that this video scales, or I hope that this video goes viral. They have tons of at-bats. What we allow them to do is try a huge number of influencers, a huge number of videos, and sort of increase the likelihood that they're gonna reach those audiences, increase the frequency that they're gonna reach those audiences, because generally if they're targeting a sort of type of content or an audience that's watching one kind of video, that same consumer is gonna be watching content on another kind of video that they're targeting. So for a company like L'Oreal, when they wanna re-energize one of their brands, this is what this kind of campaign looks like across lots of content, different 3D models inserted into different organic content. When was the last time you saw that said about your video pre-roll? Consumers love this content and they love the interaction. They love not being interrupted by annoying ads. And so we see this all the time in the comments on YouTube or TikTok, where consumers are posting. We don't ask them to post, but they're actually taking the time out of their day to write comments mentioning the brand and mentioning their positive sentiment about what they're seeing. And we love this, and brands love this. This actually also delivers real results. So if you look at some of the key performance metrics that brands will study on things like unaided brand awareness, aided brand awareness, that it first mentioned, like, what is the first product that comes to mind when you see this video, and then aided awareness. We start to see brand lift across all of these metrics, and these are for pretty recognizable brands. So the reality is, like, moving the needle on a brand that you see at your local CVS from a brand recognition perspective is pretty hard, and we're seeing pretty off the charts results as a result of this. And so I want to talk a little bit about tech. I know we're at an AI conference, but I might say something a little unpopular. But I think that the state of the art in generative is wildly insufficient. And there are use cases where it is fine, but if you're a brand marketer and you own the brand presence for Pepsi or L'Oreal, and you ask a generative model to produce a shampoo bottle or a can of Pepsi, this is what you get. And I think it's pretty clear no one you might recognize this as Pepsi, but I don't think anyone would pay for this Pepsi can to be in their advertising. And so I think that the state of the art is actually wildly insufficient to create the 3D models for this technology, let alone trying to put those models in video content, where you are creating an artificial element in a photorealistic video. A a lot of the generative technology you've seen or you've heard about takes sort of fantastical scenes, they create their own environments, and then they can modify those environments. We're sort of saying, yeah, that's great, but if you are working with video, you have to be able to accommodate real world video and not know anything about what is the lighting setup, where are the shadows, how deep is the table from the wall. And so we've had to create a brand new generative technology we call generative fusion, which combines perception models, so a model that understands the world around you, with generative models that can then create new objects in that synthetic world. And we have to fuse those things together at 60 frames per second over the course of maybe a 10 or 20 or 45-minute video and make it look realistic and make those two worlds come together. The synthetic world of this artificial product we have dropped in a real world without knowing anything about the way that world is set up. And so what are some of the steps that are required to get that done? For generative fusion, the first thing we have to understand is where are the cameras, right? We get a video asset, but we don't have a 3D mapping of the studio or the room. We're getting this all post-production, so we don't have a sense of what kind of effects that the editor has done when they're using Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere to edit. And so we have to take every frame of the video and generate or compute all of this information about the scene. So we have to understand the scene, right? Is it indoor or outdoor? Where is the human in the scene versus the different, surfaces? We have to understand 3D geometry and actually compute it. So given think of it as like someone sent you an image, you would have to basically extract all of the 3D geometry and understand, where your normals, if you put a object on a wall, would it face up and down vertically, or would it face, horizontally towards you? We have to understand how all of the light interactions work, how the shadows interact, not just in the room itself, but we also have to understand when we place something in that world, how do the shadows and the light change as a result of that? And then we have to create masks. So for example, if I put a fake can of Pepsi here, and then I put my hand in front of it, you would expect that Pepsi to disappear, right? And in a video, it would be pretty weird if I put my hand in front of a Pepsi and it didn't disappear. And so we have to understand depth and occlusions and make sure that when someone does move around the video, if we've put an object in that video, that it appears realistic. And so all of this generative fusion technology, there are a lot of AI tools out there today that sort of wrap ChatGPT or wrap foundation models or call a bunch of APIs and create awesome workflow. And that's great. And we would have loved that. That would have made our job a lot easier. When we looked at this problem, when we started to see what was out there, we had to go and create all of this tech ourselves. So we're building, a 3D spatial lighting model as a foundation model that allows us to understand from a 2D picture, how do you create, for every pixel, what's the light source that lights that pixel in the scene? We have to create masks for occlusion that allow us to understand the difference between a human running through a scene, a dog running through a scene. We've seen situations in videos where someone has a poster or a photo on the background, and the models mistake the human in the picture in the video for a real life human in the real world. There's a lot that goes into having to create this at scale. And we think that generative fusion really is the future by bringing those two concepts together. This looks a lot like traditional product placement. So you might ask, well, why don't you just send the Pepsi can to the influencer and have them put it on their table? And for sure, that's not new. People have been doing that forever. The reality is that doesn't scale for lots and lots of companies. So there's sort of two categories. One is your traditional sort of CPG products. Yeah, sure, you could send those products to an influencer, but again, you don't have those kind of at-bats. So you're sending a product to an influencer, you've got to make sure they're holding it the right way, they're saying the right things about it. You've got to negotiate a deal with them and make sure you understand, what kind of rights you have when you're working with them, and they will charge you a lot because they're doing extra work. With generative fusion, the influencer creates the content the way they want to, and it's one extra step to upload to us and then download. There are also categories of products where they are kind of not presentable. Like, how would you demonstrate in a piece of content the value of Charles Schwab, right? Like, that's pretty hard to do. You can't send a Charles Schwab poster to an influencer and expect them to hang it on their wall. It would look pretty unnatural, but we've sort of combined those elements into this tech. The last thing that I think is pretty interesting is we've seen some brands say, wow, this is actually better than putting a static object in the scene because you can animate it. You can tell a story. You can have the story can pop out of the poster and sort of surprise and delight in a way that you couldn't actually do if you just had it sitting on the desk. And so we're super excited about the future of this as a new ad format for video content. We think this is really the next gen when it comes to marketing, to video marketing for sure. And we see this as really being something that hopefully all of you, when you're out watching content, start to see more of out in the world. So happy to chat more about it if you're interested, but that's what we're up to at Rembrandt.